who wants to mess up? Who wants to get something wrong? Who wants to hurt somebody else's feeling? Like, nobody wants these things. You may make suboptimal decisions. You may piss off your employees. You may hurt somebody's feelings. You may said something disrespectful. Brushing off your mistakes and saying, oh well, and leaving it alone is basically a cop-out. Owning it and committing to doing better is true strength and true courage as a leader. See, the strongest leadership is built in the repair. Shit, I messed up, but I can still course correct. I can still get it to where I need it to be. I can accept that correction and repair is part of the process. Then I take my power back. Hello and welcome to the Unlock Lab. I am so glad you're here. I'm your host, Tosca Di Matteo, and welcome. If this is your first time here, wow, have we got a treat for you today, because I want to talk to you about where the real strength in leadership lies. And it's not about getting everything right. The strongest leadership comes from your willingness to be in the repair and the correction of your very human actions and approaches to working with others. So I really wanted to talk to you about this today because I think that there's a lot of reasons why folks are resistant to acknowledging, recognizing when they've made a mistake, and then taking action to do the repair and the correction. Because let's just be honest, like, who wants to mess up? Who wants to get something wrong? Who wants to hurt somebody else's feelings? Who wants to say the wrong thing? Like, nobody wants these things. But I'm here to tell you that this is part of what the leadership journey is. Like, you can't possibly get everything right and hit everything on the mark when it comes to interacting with people. So I want to talk a bit about this and share a story that I think might help bring it to life too. And here's the reality, right? When we're in leadership positions, the stakes can feel higher. And that's frankly because they are. And if you're not confident in your leadership skills, you could even, in a worst case scenario, end up operating in a fight or flight mode if the fear is that deep. You can end up being in fear of making mistakes, and the level of your fear can depend on a number of things. And it goes back well before probably you think in terms of what our operating system is like as a leader. We are heavily influenced by experiences as a child, and that comes into play in terms of how we show up as a leader in our willingness to be in repair and correct. But operating with an underlying level of fear of messing up or doing the wrong thing isn't going to serve you or anyone. Then the question is, like, where do you start? If any of this has resonated with you so far, where do you start then when you recognize, oh man, yeah, like, I am afraid of doing something wrong, or like, I'm afraid of what will happen if I do try to repair it and make it worse? This is what I want you to do in terms of a starting point for this work. And that is to ask yourself, what expectations are you placing on yourself in your role as a leader? Most of the time, we're actually not aware of the expectations we're placing on ourselves until we have really big feelings. So we have to really sit with this question and say, am I expecting that I make no mistakes? Am I expecting that everybody's going to love me? Part of understanding this is about understanding your earliest messages that you received around your own performance. Like I said, the crux of this work can go back way back into our childhood. So you can ask yourself, were you expected to get it right the first time with whatever you did? If you can't do something well, were you told not to do it at all? Think about the messages you received from your caretakers, from your parents, even from your teachers, because this will give you an understanding of the expectations you place on yourself, because it's been conditioned and indoctrinated into you about what's acceptable. And listen, if you operate in a highly technical field, if you come from that technical expertise where something either works or it doesn't, it's a pass or a fail, you're either dead on balls accurate or you aren't, well, then you probably have a certain belief system about mistakes and errors. Perhaps you don't even make room for that as part of the process or part of how you figure things out by seeing what doesn't work. So I want you to sit with that as well. What is your belief system around making mistakes, about getting things wrong, about things that fall in a gray area that aren't black and white or binary as pass or fail. Really understanding what you believe about this is so helpful for you to understand how you can start to shift your thinking, your beliefs, and even your patterns of behavior. Fear of getting things wrong or unfavorable outcomes can keep you from taking any action. And you may or may not be realizing this. It can lead you to avoiding conflict. It can even keep you from trying something new or taking a new approach to something, trying a hypothesis. And you may even think that it's better to get it wrong than to try to make it right. But I beg to differ, because not addressing the thing that went wrong means it's festering below the surface. And it may not be festering for you. Maybe you can bury it so deep that it doesn't bother you. But I guarantee you, it's probably bothering the people involved, where you know something got messed up. You said something that hurt somebody's feelings or what have you. As a leader, I can tell you this. You're not going to always get it right on the first try, especially when it comes to, emotional things. You may make suboptimal decisions. You may piss off your employees. You may hurt somebody's feelings. You may said something disrespectful. You may even be the bottleneck without realizing it. But the good news is you don't have to leave it at that once you are aware of some of these things. In fact, to be honest, brushing off your mistakes and saying, oh well, and leaving it alone is basically a cop-out. But owning it and committing to doing better is true strength and true courage as a leader. You see, the strongest leadership is built in the repair. Sometimes we can even leapfrog the strength of our relationships when things go sour, when we get to show who we really are in the repair. I want you to actually think about some of your strongest relationships. Was there ever a rough patch or a really challenging argument? Did you work through that? And afterwards, was it a stronger relationship as a result? I can think of a lot of relationships in my life that are stronger because something went wrong and we had to kind of work through it. And I'm going to guess you have that too. And I want to share a story that kind of brings to life this idea of correcting and repairing as part of the process to expect. That's completely unrelated to your job. So you may not know this, but I've had type 1 diabetes for 24 years, which means I'm in charge of keeping my sugar levels in control all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And there is a math to this, right? Like there's a ratio of carbs to insulin, and there's a ratio when your sugar goes low of like how much sugar should you have and how long should you wait, right? There's information that tells me, okay, this is generally the right approach. And of course, I would love to get it right all the time. I love to make the right food choices, the right insulin amounts. And the truth is I now have an electronic pump. I have a pod that is connected to my phone where I can plug in numbers and it does some calculating for me. So there's actually a lot that's off of my plate that never used to be off my plate. But even with all this technology and the mathing in the background, I still get it wrong all the time. So case in point, probably the most prominent example is when my sugar goes low, right? There's a certain amount of carbs to take to get it back to like that normal place that you want it to be. And there's also a certain amount of time that it takes for your sugar to come back, right? It's not instantaneous. You don't like drink the orange juice and then, 2 seconds later you're fine. No, it takes time to reach your bloodstream, right? And I know this in my head. I know it takes time, but I overshoot it all the time. And by that, I mean like I'll drink more orange juice than I need, or I'll start eating other things, or I'll grab the Skittles or whatever. And the reason for this is because I'm uncomfortable in the feelings when my sugar is low. And by the feelings, I mean sensations, right? Like my heart's pounding, like I might be sweating, like all the things, right? I'm jittery. And my body is literally giving me signals to eat. Like it makes me feel very hungry because it's wanting to make sure that I'm giving myself what I need to stay alive. Literally, right? This is what's happening. And then what will happen is 90% of the time when my sugar goes low and I'm trying to get it back to that good range of like, let's call it 100, I overshoot it. And my sugar will go up to like over 200 because I took too much sugar, right? Now, I've had this for 24 years. You would think I would know better. But like what I've learned, and maybe it took me a lot longer than I would like, but what I learned is to expect the overcorrection. Like that this is part of something that I can't control in many ways. Sure, I could lock myself in a room and say, don't have any more orange juice until I feel better. But that's not going to happen. I've had to accept that not everything is an exact science, even when literally we're talking about science. Because even with science, there's an art, right? There's this unknown factor of the human body. Just like there's this unknown factor in terms of how people are going to respond to you as a leader. And it took me a long time to accept that I'm not always going to get it right. I'm not always going to do it right. I'm not going to be good at it the first time, the second time. Like it's a constant learning process and my body is always changing. And I think the same holds true in leadership. I had to teach myself that I'm not always going to say the right thing. I'm not always going to get it right. I'm not always going to make the best, most optimal decision, but that if I can accept that correction and repair is part of the process, then I take my power back because I can say, oh, that didn't turn out the way I wanted, but I can do something about it. It's the same thing with my sugar. Shit, I messed up, but I can still course correct. I can still get it to where I need it to be. And you have to accept that leadership is messy and it's not binary. There's not like always right or wrong, and that people's emotions are involved. But if you're willing to face that fear of the uncertainty of like, how's it going to go if I try to repair, or I don't even know what to do to repair, that's actually like a beautiful place to start. Because if you were to go to somebody and say, I know I messed up, I take responsibility for this thing, I don't know how to make it right, my guess is that person sitting across from you is going to help you figure out what's going to make them feel better, or what are some possibilities about how you can repair and correct. And I know this work isn't easy. That's why I do what I do, because learning how to face the uncertainty and the fear, learning how to live with the discomfort that you messed up, that's a process. And also being in relation to other people with that is something to learn and to develop and to give yourself space and grace for. Because this is a muscle just like anything else, just like you would learn how to code, just like you would learn how to operate machinery, whatever it is. Like you're not going to get it right the first time. And that's why I go back to how I started this conversation with you, which is what are the expectations that you have for yourself about your leadership role and responsibility? And is it realistic? Do you need to give yourself some space and grace in that? And identify what courage looks like for you. The courage to me isn't about sweeping things under the rug and saying, oh, well, I messed that up. Courage to me is saying, yeah, I didn't make the best choice there. And I'm willing to confront that and have a conversation. Like that to me is courage. Because what happens is when we bury the things that we know didn't work, and my guess is you probably have a sense when something doesn't work. You may not know why, or you may not know exactly what you did wrong, but you're probably going to have a sense that something went awry. And being willing to not push that under the rug and being willing to look at it and explore it and have conversations is the thing that's going to allow you to build a stronger reputation as a leader, because you're willing to face yourself with the truth. And you're willing to try to make things better with the folks involved. So I hope, if nothing else, this conversation helps normalize making mistakes as a leader. And I hope it also instills in you this idea that repair and correction is a part of the process. It's not an exception to it, and to give yourself permission to be easier on yourself. Because let me tell you, what happens when we admit we did something wrong, the other person or people involved can really respect that. And I think sometimes we forget about that. I mean, think about your life experience. When somebody has apologized to you or said, yeah, I really messed up, what was the impact it had on you? It probably meant a lot. And just sometimes we forget in reverse what the impact is when we can do that for others. Well, I'm glad that you were here in the Unlock Lab. And look, if you have any questions about this or concerns, or you're just like, man, how do I know if I'm actually truly doing repair and correction? Like, let me know, reach out to me. All my information is on this platform in the notes. So I would love to hear from you. And in the meantime, be kind to yourself. And thanks for coming to the Unlock Lab. Ciao for now.